Welcome back to here with Goldberg. Today we'll be talking about demographics and the unpaid work meme. Now, I stand by what I said in the Poly video. Certain groups have better population totals than others. At the same time, with stats, you have to be cautious. For one, I don't believe blacks amount to 12% of the US population. I think it's closer to 20, if not 25%. When you factor in those who are mixed but would be taken as African American by the vast majority of the population, yeah, it ain't around those totals you've heard from the census. It makes you also wonder if things were so bad and if things are so bad with systemic racism, how are they able to replicate in such high numbers? But that's not a debate I want to get into right now. Moving on, cream cheese people. This is going to be anecdotal, but in my area, and I've even traveled to a number of blue states, they are having kids. Maybe not at the levels they would have in the past, but they certainly are reproducing. I don't see them dying out anytime soon. You might claim the ones who are into the big city life, the upper crust educated, are doing away with childbirth because of the environment, but I don't think it's nearly as bleak of a picture. If anything, the problem would be intergroup competition is reducing some potential births, but I wouldn't exactly write them off quite yet. Now, Hispanics are interesting. Some of the black pill will go, when you're Hispanic, you have your abuela, and she finds you a cablina to marry, but this doesn't happen when you're white. Ugh. Oh, shut the hell up. What is the matter with people who just, they don't seem to be able to use the knowledge they have and then maybe do superior analysis? So sure, Hispanics being more recent comers, at least some of them, you're going to have that boomlet. No question. At the same time, when you talk about solving demographic issues with migration, immigration is overwhelmingly male. It's not one for one as far as the ratio is concerned. And Western American women are not looking to reproduce with your typical curry cell or sub 5 habanero. Possibly a Chad Pre, Chad Dreek, but there's going to be few and far between. So you're not really addressing that problem. Also, if you believe in the stats, as these people do, Latin American countries are going into demographic decline. Chris Hitchens said years ago the number one impediment to female liberation are prohibitions on abortion and birth control. They are illegal in some of these countries, but there are ways around it. And Latino women are starting to recognize, oh, I don't have to just settle for this basic existence. I can do better. As these guys come into the US, if they're not bringing a girlfriend or a wife in tow, most of them are going to be TFLers. They might be able to pay the local pizza for some ass, but other than that, they're in about the same set of shoes as your guy who's on one of these Inkwell forums. And how many of them we've seen in the news? They're getting busted attacking women, attacking kids. Now, it's sad to say, but if you know people from Central America, they will tell you this. A lot, and it's tragic, a lot of children get touched by relatives in Central America. Now, you could say those are just perverts, or it might also be reflective of you don't have access potentially to an actual spouse or girlfriend, whatever it might be. Not just that. Let's say you're a hardworking construction guy or you do landscaping. Well, mestiza women are easily some of the most hypergamous in the world, barring perhaps Asians. And I've seen this firsthand. They work in, let's say, a department store, low-level position. They monkey branch to the white manager and have him knock them up. Or remember the Made in Manhattan movie? That was a documentary. You'll see white or Asian normies make like six figures, and they'll try to poach some girl who's a cleaner or working in food service because they figure she's going to be less demanding than the females they find on dating apps, which is probably true, at least to start. When it comes to Spanish girls who've been raised in the US and are perhaps bilingual, they're still going to have a propensity to gravitate towards guys they have stuff in common with, i.e., not your landscape egg sperm. And as such, it's not to say no Latinos are reproducing, but it's not as bright as some of these individuals make you think. Yes, certain ones will have kids, a lot are simply going to age out. It's a sheer demographic issue at this stage. Moving on, we've got this video from The Guardian, which deals with women who don't want to have kids. And I actually watched a more recent segment, which was all cream cheese females. This particular one has a couple of sisters, but you see the usual complaints. It's too expensive, men don't want to commit. And one that stands out, I have to do all this unpaid work, taking care of kids, the house. I believe Andrew Yang had talked about throwing money at these females because it's not fair. They're an integral part of the economy. And I would agree if you're talking about maybe 1910s rural America or even 1850s, but that was more of subsistence-based existence. Nowadays, it's hard to take seriously these females. And interestingly enough, in the comments, you'd have some going, it's okay to be a old cat lady who drinks wine. You can't shame them. I warned MGTOWs about this years ago. You can't use these 1950s mores about how, oh, you're not going to get married, you're not going to have kids, because they're just going to laugh at you. At the same time, let's assess the merits of what they're trying to say is a grievance. This notion that they have to do so much work. But what type of work are you actually doing? So I will hand it to you. If we're talking ages 0 to maybe 4 or 5, kids are a bundle. You have to watch over them, take care of them. But if you're seeing that as simply an economic burden, nothing else, like motherhood, love, caring, well, then just don't have kids. But acting as though it's, oh, well, I can't do it because I'm not getting paid for it, just strikes me as a very modern segment of arrogance. And unless you're homeschooling them, you're just going to farm the children off to the state for much of their existence. So what do you have to do in the house? Maybe make them breakfast, pack a lunch unless they're going to buy it there, potentially do dinner. Okay, well, there's Blue Apron, there's Freshly. You're not required necessarily to prep all food from scratch. And by the way, if you're doing so, you got toaster ovens now, instant pots, electric skillets, air fryers. I mean, we're spoiled. You can make gourmet food in a number of minutes. You're not, oh, I gotta start the fire and keep the stove going and churn the butter and skin the animals. No, you actually have it pretty easy. Cleaning, you've got Roombas now to go after the dust bunnies. You have Swiffer mops. You've got these high-powered cleaning sprays. It ain't like the old days. You're not on your hands and knees scrubbing the floor, even though perhaps some of them need to experience that so they can truly feel oppressed, because it seems that women are always claiming they're oppressed even when their lives are easier than most of the world's. But nonetheless, we'll hear about how these dudes are lazy. Oh, he took a dump on me. He won't do any chores. Will you stop for a second? Hold on. I don't want to say they're lying, because I've met dudes who, in fact, can't keep a communal area clean, can't do their own dishes, can't pick up after themselves. Typically, of course, they are pretty boys or Chad tier. And the theory with that is that the mom doesn't waylay them with these responsibilities or having a part-time job, and just you go and focus on the women, right? You have the maximum success when it comes to whether it's actual reproduction or just some simulation of it, smashing chicks. And whereas if you're a normie guy, you're going to be pushed into, oh, you got to be a stem cell, you got to be working to pay for your college, you need to take care of yourself. And women seem to select these men despite them being disgusting. In fact, you've seen posts where women talk about guys who have no personal hygiene, literally can't wipe their own ass, and the woman stays and mothers him. And yet you'll have dudes, their lives are put together and they're basically invisible to these women. So why are women tending to select these mama's boys who can't take care of themselves, who only know how to make top ramen and, basically walk around with stained underwear? They choose those males. Well, why don't you vet them and choose something else? Is it because maybe they're more attractive? That's why you look past those flaws that you would not tolerate with other specimens? And then who's raising those men? Well, it's predominantly women that are doing so, because fathers don't really have any authority in society any longer. So it's a classic example where a lot of women seem to complain about a problem which is their own creation, but the solution is undesirable or unappealing to them. In my case, the mama's boy meme just doesn't ring true. So this is a pretty accurate depiction of my upbringing. So I've got the beard and the hats, and I'm directing these poor minorities to do my chores. No, just kidding. So I did everything from mowing the lawn, cleaning the bathroom. I did that on the regular, vacuuming, laundry. You would set it to go. You would have to hang it, sort, fold. One reason I would never want a woman doing my laundry like in a mix because I don't want to have to separate my t-shirts from her thongs. It's just easier if you separate, do your own business. When it came to the kitchen, I didn't have some Aunt Jemima slaving away. No, I didn't necessarily cook as much. I did a lot of baking, but I know how to cook, and I have a couple of useful appliances now, like a bread machine, that kind of thing. So the notion that when I look at this stuff and I just go, okay, as a guy who makes decent money, has your own place, cars are paid off, stays fit, takes trips, what does a woman offer me? Forget about these females always going, well, you can't measure up. What does she offer me, genuinely speaking? Because if they don't want to, as we saw some clip on Twitter of this Latina, she's going, I don't cook for my man, I don't clean for my man, I don't do his laundry. And you're, all right, so what do you have to offer? The typical woman in the Western world. You don't want to make up this gourmet food. You don't want to do laundry. You don't want to clean. You always want to keep points over who's doing too much, and it's not fair. You really don't want to have kids because it's too much of a burden on you and it's too expensive. And it's not like the vast majority of the ones I've met off of dating apps in particular, they got horrible personalities. They're not pleasant to be around. I was at a Thai restaurant recently, and the waitress girl, she can't have been more than like 23, 24. She's going like, is everything okay? Can I get you anything more? And you're like, well, she's just trying to fish for tips. But she was being in a similar fashion towards other employees, so I figure it was relatively sincere. And even if it was an act, I would rather have some random waitress girlfriend like that. And I don't expect her to do stuff for me in the sense of like, oh, you got to keep my house. But I'm saying she's at least nice. The problem with these women is that if you're not getting the family formation. You're not getting the womanly duties or responsibilities being the guy's helpmeet. Then what do you benefit from? Is she going to get hands on with some DIY thing in your house? No, the only time she's getting hands on is the bare minimum she has to do such that you don't leave her. This is not a life. So you can talk about unpaid work, but it's like these women aren't doing any work when it comes to relationships. That's why they can't keep them fundamentally, because they think they can do better, but they're never really contributing much on their own part. At least that's how I see it. I know you guys are going to say, "Oh, you're just a blue-pilled simp." Go right ahead. I'm happy. I'm relaxed. I'm prepared for the world once more.